holy crap, my platform just changed. Because it's so much more than the biceps and the chesticles. It's having a sense of purpose of waking up every single day. And then when you see those physical changes and you working harder than last time and really pushing yourself mentally, because it's all mental.
A talk between two or more people in which news and ideas are exchanged. Conversations have the power to inspire, teach, and uplift. Here, we are all about inspiring you to follow your dreams, use your gift, and walk in your purpose. I'm your host, Opiyemi Ifufore, and this is Conversations with Opie. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Opie. My guest today is Megan Wilton, a strength trainer and nutrition coach. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
I'm so excited to have you. It's been a while since we've caught up individually with one another. And I just thought that this conversation about debunking the myth of women in weight training and fitness and wellness is just, you're the perfect guest for that. You know, it's something that you do in your daily life. It's something that you educate those who watch you, who are following your journey. So, and I want my listeners to also gain something valuable from our conversation today. So again, thank you for joining me today on this conversation.
I can't wait. There's so many things I know I already want to talk about. So hopefully people receive that information.
Right. But before we even get into it, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Oh gosh. So my name's Megan. I currently live in Huntsville, Alabama. My full-time job actually is as a systems engineer with this amazing consulting company called Higher Echelon. And I actually do the strength and nutrition coaching online part-time for Pivotal Spine and Pelvis. So they're stationed, such an army word. They're out of Houston, Texas. So I work underneath Dr. Kelsey. She's a doctor of chiropractic. And then we have another coach, Coach Lindsay. She's actually a retired Air Force nurse. So it's really taking the allied health professional space and not these Instagram, personal trainers and actually applying the principles of exercise physiology, allied health, chiropractic land, nurse stuff. That's like the best way I could explain it. And really educating our clients okay, yes, strength training and eating well is great, but this is what it does to your body. I know one of my goals is basically by the time a client is done with me, you can go get your bachelor's of science in exercise science.
Wow. So you definitely go into you give them the education on the whys, not just do this, but this is the reason why I want you to do this. And this is how it benefits your wellness.
That and holding them accountable to retain that information.
That's very good. So
I think you are responsible for your health, whether it's fitness or, work wise or personal life wise, you are responsible at the end.
Personal responsibility. That's a big one. A lot of us need to hold ourselves accountable to a lot of things, fitness wise and outside. So what got you into this world of teaching people about their wellness and being responsible?
Ooh, that is a long story. And that story could just be this conversation in itself. But it really came from or catalyzed from my time at West Point, and I saw the benefits of weight training and improving my skills as a volleyball player. And I grew up with my father was a bodybuilder, so I've always had some sort of dumbbell or barbell in my hand. And then I was asked to be the strength and conditioning grad assistant after I graduated from West Point. And from there, it was just like a bug that was bit. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to go back to school one day and get my master's in ex phys and be a strength coach. Very narrow-minded, biceps and chesticles and glutes were always the goal. And the whole scene of sports performance and that kind of illusion of what a strength coach does. So that's where it really, really stemmed from initially. And then I applied those things that I've learned at my time as a grad assistant on myself and with my soldiers and my platoon and just saw a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of things that, that doesn't make sense in the way that the Army at the time trained their soldiers. So that initial goal kind of turned into something more the older I got and the more knowledge that I gained in the military.
And so you decided that, okay, it wasn't just about just having the biggest biceps, or as you said, you decided that there's more to it. Now, what is this more that a lot of us may be lacking, that is not just a physical appearance thing?
I think, well, a lot of it's due to social cultural influence. And when I say something fancy like that, I mean social media. And I think a lot of, especially younger people, they view these like athletes and these videos and the bench press and squats and stuff like that. And there is unfortunately, in westernized civilization, this need for instant gratification. And they don't understand the mechanisms and the principles behind building a physique or reaching a certain goal and the time it takes behind that. Just imagine like if like for me, if I got my master's in 2 weeks, would I appreciate it as much as it took me to get it in 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's appreciating that journey, but it's also that education behind it. Like, why is my body feeling this way? Like, what do I need to eat in order to accomplish that goal? And I think this one size applies to all that you see like on social media, and especially like in the Army, like it doesn't work for everybody. And even that evolved from that. And for me, I got into bodybuilding, very ignorant. So over exercised, over dieted, and I had a lot of hormonal issues from that. So then it was like getting into the scene of hormone health and how the woman's physiology is completely different from a man's physiology, cross-sectional muscles, just the way that we respond to exercise, the different phases in your menstrual cycle where your energy levels are affected, and what time periods can you like really take advantage of, and how important our hormones are and how important eating is.
Mm-hmm.
So I share my faults a lot. To educate other people. I'm like, hey man, if you like basically starve yourself and like work out 3 times a day, like this is the amount of money you're going to be spending on hormone pellet injections and therapy and all these things. You don't want to go like down that road. So now it's more of a just educating women, one, because they should be responsible for knowing what their menstrual cycle is. I have women that are like 40 years old that have no idea what the follicular phase is, what the luteal phase is, what testosterone does, is how important it is actually for women, what estrogen is. They have no idea. And I'm just like, holy heck. Like, but not everybody is as passionate as I am about this. Like you have to think like in a different world, like my daytime job, like I don't care what my software engineer, well, I do care what my software engineers do, but even when I go look at their passions, a lot of them have like their own YouTube pages of like how they make video games. I'm like, that's really cool, but that's something I'm not going to invest more time into looking into. So.
Right. So how do you explain this to, like you said, there's someone like you who's passionate about it. This is basically, again, how you live your life. Like, you know, eating is important, fitness is important, mental health is important. And you live your life learning how to be better at it every day. But for everyday people who wake up in the morning, they're going to work, they're not thinking in that depth. How do you explain that weight training or being well is important to their life?
I'm very notorious to speak from the cellular level. So, and that was a learning curve for sure, because I'm like, I thought everybody wants to know like what the mitochondria does, and that's not necessarily it. So I guess it was learning how to communicate just from a very basic level, and not to undermine anybody's intelligence by any means, but just setting that foundation first and kind of giving them a more like metaphors, like, okay, we have to put the frames up first, and then we have to lay the concrete down, and then we got to let that cure. lifestyle changes, sleeping, stress management, putting and I say right in parentheses, the right foods into your body, relationships with other people, mental health, and I'll touch on that later. And just like giving them bits and pieces for them to understand and getting to know that person too. And I think that's something we talked about earlier before we started the interview, and leadership and being a leader in this space. It's learning you have to get to know the person and how they receive information the best. So there's I'm like, you're an athlete too at West Point, and like, for me, like when I was a volleyball player, I respond best to people, my coach, like basically screaming at me. I'm like, okay, like I got it, but there's other athletes that, I'm like, okay, like I need you to do this. This would be great. This is why, that'd be awesome. And that's the best way that they respond. So it's just like learning your people and how they're going to respond to information, absorb that information back the best. So they have tools in their toolbox.
Right. So as an athlete, and, as you mentioned before, weight training is something that you incorporated into basically being really good at what you do. And it's also something that I was also fortunate to be introduced to. Doing track, my coach was like, Olympic weightlifting, we're going to do this. I'd never done that before. He's like, no, you can definitely, squat more than that, like teaching you all those techniques. But getting more women into this world of weight training and understanding that it's so good for you is actually not an easy thing. If you're not an athlete, if you're not someone that's introduced to it earlier on. And there's also this misconception of you're going to get bulky. It's too masculine. It's too this, how do we begin to introduce more women into this world? Because social media makes it seem like it's very popular, but it's still not at the level that it can be in terms of getting more women in weightlifting.
I completely agree. And I know our scope, especially what we see in our algorithms, it's like, man, it's everywhere, but it's really not. And I think it's the best way to do it is to get a coach. And if you're interested in something, it doesn't matter what it is, but in relation to this conversation, it's to find somebody that you can communicate with and relate with, and ensuring that coach takes you step by step of why, going from, even band exercises to dumbbell work to the Smith machine. I love the Smith machine. And then getting to the barbell. So just going like baby step by baby step through this process. I think we're doing a better job from a social standpoint, of women lifting in general. Like having muscle is now considered like sexy. So I'm like, cool, like that's fantastic. Hopefully that never changes. But I think just like the initial plunge of, okay, I'm going to do this, and finding somebody to help them go step by step. But then that's the hard part, because there's a lot of personal trainers that I know that are just like, all right, we're going to do jump squats, and this person's 400 pounds and we're going to throw a barbell on your back. And they don't understand the principles of strength and conditioning. Progression. And, people view like personal trainers or exercise physiologists or whatever, they're like, oh, they're dumb. Like all I had to do is take a test. I'm like, no, there is a lot of science and research-based information out there, and like how to do it safely, and breathing, and just teaching that client how to understand these movements and why they do these movements, and that self awareness and body awareness. It's like there's so much, like breathing in itself. I will spend 2 weeks. I've spent 2 weeks with somebody just to teach them how to breathe through a movement, because they're holding their breath. And I'm like, bro, we got to go all the way back to like when you're in the womb, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do have that misconception about personal training, that it's just about just telling someone to do this. But there is a scientific aspect to it. There is a reason why you have to do this movement in this way and to do it safely. What ways do you think that we actually should start at a younger age in teaching women and men, not just women and men, just the values of movement? I recently saw this. I think you also saw this picture about how we don't know how to squat anymore because of
Yeah.
just because of the way we live our daily lives. We're not doing those movements that were natural to us at a point, and now we don't know how to get into the low squat for some people who don't train that way. Where do you think that the learning starts for us?
I just think like anything, it's just being ready to accept, to learn something, and not this from, I guess, like a psychologist, a psyche aspect of the brain. Just like anything, that like being willing to learn something new, and not being afraid to fail at that thing. Man, that is a very intense question, like going all the way back to primal and caveman days. That, I think that's the biggest hurdle, is just making that mental decision, that cognitive decision to like, I'm going to learn this, and no matter if I fail, like I'm just going to keep going, and from a woman's standpoint, like I understand, like when you go to the gym, I still experience it, even though, I walk in there and I put my headphones in, and I look like I'm going to like kill everyone. But it's just like, and not all men, right? I don't demonize men at all. I've gotten very rude comments from women as well. And I know you and I are genetically very muscular. So, and I'm sure if you experienced some not so nice comments. But
Just
a lot
a
of
little
women
bit.
that go in there, they're very intimidated by these other people that have, learned and gained their physique. And so they get either motivated or unmotivated. I think that's a personal decision, but that's a discussion for another time. I did a Mondays with Coach Megan on that. Like, does fit inspiration actually inspire you? And I'm like, that's definitely a personal decision. That's your own issues. That has nothing to do with, Brooke Wells from the CrossFit land. Like, she should motivate the hell out of you. But, and it doesn't help when there's like weird dudes, like hitting on you, and another light, like I've definitely been hit on by women. I'm like, I don't go that way, but I think you're a great human being. Just also, I think picking the right space too, and what's going to be comfortable for you. A lot of women start with like group classes. I think that's a great place to start. And then once they gain a little bit more knowledge, especially getting a coach, they're able to go out on the floor and have a plan. I'm a huge advocate for that. I have like all my journals right here, but having a journal, planning out your workout, so like you're kind of distracted from everything else, because you're like, okay, I have my list. There's a lot of value, I think, from like writing things down. I have my list. These are the things I need to do, get in, get out. But it's so much more than doing the workout. It's if people have social anxiety, if people have anxiety in general, going into that space and getting it done, there's so many more goals that are accomplished during that time than just the workout itself.
Right. I think you definitely hit on, I like the point of making a plan. And because even before you go into the workout, you have to know, what exactly am I actually doing when I do the workout, and what do I believe this workout is going to do for me? And then also going back after the workout and saying, like holding yourself accountable to it and reflecting on it. And is it effective? Am I getting to the goal that I've set for myself? A lot of people just kind of do a workout and then you just keep going, and they're like, oh, I'm not seeing any results. I'm not really seeing anything. Well, are you even doing the right things, or what you're actually doing working towards your goal? Or are you just doing it because just to say, well, I went to the gym today, that's enough. But if it doesn't align with your goal, then you're not going to get where you want to be.
Yeah, if I plan to learn, I must learn to plan.
Right.
And I think what we're talking about in fitness, and we could talk about fitness and supplements and the certain barbells that we like, but I think the fundamental common denominator of this conversation and a lot of conversations I have with my clients is the mental piece. Like, you have to work harder than last time. I don't know if you ever watched Greg Doucette on YouTube, but I stole that from him. Like, you have to work harder than last time. Having your journal, and having something tangible, like, okay, I did 135 for 8 on the squat one last week. I'm going to try 140 this week. And it's okay if you don't get it that week. You just work harder than last time the next week, and you make sure your food's good, your sleep is good. People don't sleep and they wonder why they don't get results. That their personal relationships are good, that they're mentally good. And that's something I really have changed my scope of how I coach is your insides have to be good before your outsides are good. And like when I first started doing bodybuilding, so I think that's where it really, really stemmed from. Was when I did bodybuilding, I thought like how you looked on the outside was everything, and you get this validation from people, and oh, you look so shredded, you look so good, and everybody, like, no matter how self-aware you are of yourself, like, everybody loves that, right? Like, oh yeah, look good, like, like you look smoking, like, oh yeah. But then you're doing these other things that are dangerous, supplements and starving yourself and over exercising, and it leads to a lot of awful secondary cascades for sure. So then once I figured that out and spent a lot of money to recover from that, and it's a daily thing. Body dysmorphia is definitely a thing. Orthorexia, and a lot of people aren't familiar with that term, but it's basically being obsessed with only eating healthy food. And getting over that, like, it's been a long journey, man. And that's when I learned that, like, my insides are so much more important than my outsides. So it didn't matter when I stepped on stage then, I was like 8% body fat. I still hated myself. I still thought I was fat or not good enough or whatever. So this last time I stepped on stage, I thought I brought my best package. I got second, which whatever, it's fine. I wasn't mad about it, but I was happy how I looked on the outside, but I was more happy of how I felt and looked on the inside. And it was just a goal. And that's what I try to teach people. And that's why I don't post a lot of those pictures. I plan to do a post with one of them later on today, but it's just to show women, like, it's so much more than aesthetics. It's so much more than that.
So how did you, I know you mentioned that, health-wise, you just weren't your best when you were training the first time, but where did that mental change come from? How did you change how you thought about taking care of the inward, then coming out?
It's gonna get really intense. Get ready. So I guess, like, fundamentally, my family has a history of mental health issues, and this is just my personal opinion. I think there is 2 different types of mental health. One is a brain imbalance from a genetic standpoint, and one is being depressed because, like, everything sucks, and, like, life sucks, and the weather sucks, and it's just, like, because your mindset sucks. So I think there is a distinct difference, and I think they're equally as important to address, so they don't lead to things like suicide or substance abuse or, whatever. And I always had some sort of depression my whole life, and I always, like, put it off because I'm like, what is this? Like, what? I don't know what this is. Like, my whole time throughout the academy, especially like in the Army, it's like, well, I know it's not from, like, because I never went overseas, thank the Lord. But I'm like, God, there's always something that was there that bugged me, but I always pushed it off because of the stigma,
Right.
And then I think it really catalyzed when my my younger brother, Ron Jr., we bonded through volleyball. That was, like, the only thing that me and him had in common. Like, he was a mechanical engineer, going to school to be a mechanical engineer. And he was going through kind of the same thing. And I think the difference between the time when I was growing up versus when he was growing up, we didn't have Instagram and Facebook. Facebook just came out, and we didn't look at other people's lives and we're like, oh man, that looks really cool. We're
It
just
wasn't
like,
so
whatever,
instant
like
and
we're gonna go
everything.
pick our nose and go play with sticks. And he was going through some depression, and you know, that was the time COVID really, really hit, and he was about to graduate and like trying to find a job, and all those stresses. And I'm sure there's other things going on. He's a young man, you know, and he leveraged drugs and alcohol. And one night he overdosed and passed away in his sleep. My mom called me when she first found it. So that was the probably most intense conversation I had on the phone in my life. So from there, I was like, okay, like I wish Junior continued playing volleyball when he went to Long Beach State. I wish he was just part of a community. That's why I really value sports a lot, or working out, or having your like your gym posse or whatever, because that gives you a sense of purpose to get up every morning and go do something and move your body, and like just like the hormonal response, the endorphins that you get from like exercising as well as eating chocolate cake, but whatever, that's another topic for another time too. That you get from being part of a community. I'm like, dude, you could have been in like a mechanical engineer club. It still holds you accountable, you know? So that really sucked. You don't ever want to see your mother lose a child ever. So then that happened. And then my father and I, very, very close. That was a topic of conversation we always had, because he had depression too. So that we kind of bonded through that. And then growing up, he took me to all my volleyball tournaments, and he was my like personal trainer. And we were very, very close, very close. And we used to talk on the phone every single day for like an hour plus, and text all the time. Like he was my buddy. And there are things I definitely told my dad that I would never tell my mother. I'm not very close with my mother, but we're doing a lot better now, especially. But
you're daddy's girl. You were very close to him.
Dude. And then he came and visited me here in Huntsville last summer, and we had one of the best visits I ever had. And we went to the Space Museum, and he was just like a little kid, and it was just so cool to see your dad, you know. I don't even remember what was in the museum, because I was just so happy that he was happy.
Right.
You know, and we went to a barbecue, and he had a good time with that. And he just recently retired. So like getting him out of the house was just like huge. And then I was on my way to go down to Florida, and I get a text from my mom, my stepmom, but she's my mom. She raised me. And she was like, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I'm going to Florida. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to go see some giraffes. That's my spirit animal. And she's like, do you have time to talk? I already knew. There's something about it. I already knew. And she told me, I called her. She told me that I'll be blunt, I'm very transparent. As a coach, he shot himself by a walnut tree. And very philosophical, you know, in theory. And I cried on the plane, and then I was like, you know what? I choose how I respond to this right now. And that's through my resiliency training, through weightlifting, through therapy. Huge fan of therapy. Everything that I was doing, I'm like, I'm not going to slow down my progress on my mental health because somebody decided to make a decision, whether it's your father or not. Had a great weekend. And after that, just kind of addressing that, you know, still going through that grieving process of anger and certain things I wish I could call my dad about, because my AC unit went out. And I'm like, dang it, I can't call my dad and be like, Dad, what's going on? So I had to pay a guy like $600. But after that, it was just like, man, like the double hitter, right? What's the common thing between the two? They didn't have a sense of purpose in life. They didn't have a community. They didn't, and I'm like, you don't have to do work, you don't have to lift a barbell to do that. But there's something about physical exercise, and it's been proven through research how exercise improves cognitively, just all your biochemical processes and prevention of metabolic diseases and cardiovascular diseases and pulmonary diseases and bone density and all these things. And it's just like, holy crap, my platform just changed, because it's so much more than the biceps and the chesticles. It's having a sense of purpose of waking up every single day. And then when you see those physical changes and you working harder than last time and really pushing yourself mentally, because it's all mental. Like, think about Olympic lifting. That is a very mental movement, especially snatches. Holy crap. That's I know you watch probably all the USA or all the weightlifting in the Olympics. I'm just like, just mentally, just even the CrossFit games too. It's like, holy, they have to be in a completely different cognitive mindset than the average person. So, right. And that's kind of where it transitioned to that pretty recently, but I think it's always been there. It's always been there, and it really shone its light. So of course I'm sad. Of course there's days better than others, but it's just like, I have a greater purpose for sure. No, I have a greater purpose to not only just share the health and wellness and being a caloric deficit and, being toned and stuff like that. It's just like, you are capable of so much more than you think. And this is the only thing that's holding you back.
Wow.
Okay, I'm done with that.
I mean, it's a valuable and a very important part of who you are. It is something that you can't dismiss. And first, I do, my condolences that you had to even experience not one, but two losses, great losses in your life, but you've been able to, you're going through it. I wouldn't, it's not something that you get over, but you are using that as something that drives you. And now it has shifted, as you said, your purpose, that it's deeper than just picking up a weight and, I want to look like this. I want to look like someone. And I think that is what is so important in life, is that what is our purpose? Why are we living? Why are we here? I mean, we can't answer. It's such a big question to answer, but while we are here, what purpose are we serving? What is the point? What is the point of, and if we don't know what the point of it is, then we can get lost in it. We can get lost in this world.
Well, it's just leaving the earth better than how you found it.
Right.
And I think the biggest issue that we have in our country, especially right now, is lack of empathy for each other. Right. Look, I'm pretty black and white. So like, either do or do not. So there's definitely times where I'm like, F your feelings, like whatever. But like, at the same time, it's having that human to human interaction to like, okay, like, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I think that got really exposed with COVID. I think it was a blessing in disguise. Of course, it's awful that there are people that have lost family members to the virus. And I do not want to dismiss that at all whatsoever. But us being isolated and really having to look at ourselves rather than trying to paint this picture of how we displayed ourselves when we went to work, or in your relationship, and
this idea of perfection and this is how I should be, exactly. Rather than facing what's right in front of us and how we're really feeling and how that affects us.
And the resiliency skills you can from that, because what did you say earlier? Misery loves company. Sadness is also very addicting. So it's like, okay, I can be sad. That's fine. Addressing that feeling. I want you to do that. But what's the plan moving forward? Just like having your plan going to the gym. What's the plan moving forward to get you out of that mindset? Life's too short. Day's way too short.
Hmm. What is the most important value that you instill in your clients, in your athletes that you train? Knowing what you know now, experiencing what you've experienced now, what is something that you think is the most important for them to know?
Oh, I gotta pick one.
It can be, it doesn't have to be one, it can be
Hmm.
multiple.
Just being open-minded, being willing to grow. They don't have to understand it at that time. And that's why we have a fantastic platform that we use, a fantastic system, and we use Loom a lot and Zoom calls too. And I'm repeating myself a lot until it sticks. And I'm sure you experience this, and anybody that's going to listen to this, like, there are plenty of things that people tell us our entire lives. And then one day it's like, oh,
That's
I
what you
got
meant.
it.
Right.
So it's just being willing to open their mind and try something. Like I have a client that she has PCOS, and through a lot of research, there's plenty of research that supports like, hey, we got to cut out dairy. Sorry. Like it is what it is. It sucks genetically, like from PCOS and genetics and all the above. Like you are the person that will have a hard time experiencing or get to enjoy cheese. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Sucks to suck. And she was like, okay. I'm like, cool. Like other people would be like, no, like I want to be able to do that.
Or find like an alternative. Well, can I go for a different type of cheese? Maybe there's a, you know, low fat cheese I can do instead.
Right, exactly. Just like incrementally eliminating things and introducing other things, being open-minded for other things. Because there's definitely like, I used to hate tomatoes. I hate tomatoes, hate tomatoes. But once I like forced myself to kind of incorporate it into dishes, I love tomatoes. And it's just like, sometimes you kind of have to like, okay.
Let
In a second,
yourself
the first couple
experience
of
it.
times.
Be like you said, be open-minded to it.
Or like the bruschetta. I love that now. Like Olive Garden, sorry, I love that place. But like where did we go? I spoke at this event in Denver and we went to Marcello's. Anyway, they had this like bruschetta and like the tomatoes and like the mozzarella cheese with the balsamic vinegar, delicious.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I love tomatoes. So I used to eat tomatoes like apples when I was younger.
I'm
However,
not there
I've
yet.
not been able to get I haven't been able to get a good tomato here since that's just naturally sweet and delicious. So we're still working on that.
I'll do ketchup, like that's fine, but that's
Not the
not
same,
that's not
not
how
the same.
tomatoes.
Oh my goodness. Man, this conversation was definitely needed. And like you said, it goes deeper than just weight training, than just physically looking your best, and it really shows. Like if you're not doing well mentally, no matter how good you look outside, you're gonna go back, people are gonna give you compliments, but then you're back home and you're not feeling your best. It. And I think it's an important conversation to continue to have. It doesn't end here. And really instilling the point that it is from the inside out. We can only be our best if we're actually mentally well as well.
Well, and willing to grow and
Mm-hmm.
willing to fail.
That's a hard pill to swallow. No one's ready to fail.
Bro, it's a free lesson. That's how I look at it. It's the mindset of it, right? Like, okay, if I fail at something, then someone's going to tell me what the right answer is. Like, I'm pretty lazy.
That's a good way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, for engaging me and teaching me so much and being really transparent and honest. I mean, that's who you are, but I'm so happy that you felt comfortable enough to share things that you've gone through and how that has improved and changed your purpose as well. For those who do want to keep up with you and keep in touch with what you have to share with the world, where can they reach you?
So a couple places. So Instagram is the main one for sure. Getting a lot better on the Facebook side of the house, but just Megan Wilton on Instagram. On Facebook, same thing. I think it's Megan C. Wilton, but you can find me from the Instagram page over there. We also have a platform for pivotal spine and pelvis. So that's our online training space. We have a free community. So I speak every Monday about various topics, from things that are very fundamental, like calories in versus calories out, to more philosophical things like fitspiration and kind of the conversation behind that, and how like social media influences people. So a lot of topics to cover, but a lot of free education, really, and ways that you can implement in your life. So Instagram, Megan Wilton, Facebook, Pivotal Spine and Pelvis, and you can request to join that page, and get to hear me talk every Monday.
And she has a lot to share, so I will share all that information and make sure it's written out so that everyone can be able to find that information clearly. Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's conversation. Until next time, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Enjoy today's conversation. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date on the latest episode of Conversations with Opie.